Assalamu alaikum. Hello everyone. This video lecture explains what is corporate finance in very simple terms. It is important to note that corporate finance is one of the three most popular fields of finance, the other two being capital markets and investments. If you want to know briefly about finance in its fields, please watch my video lecture on what is finance. Now let's see what corporate finance is all about. So let's say you want to start up a firm that makes car toys for kids. Now, the first question that will come to your mind is which assets do you need to start such a business? You might need a place or a location to start up your business. Let's call it land. You will need some plant and machinery to manufacture your products. And since you will be making the toys in bulk, so you may have an inventory also, to name a few. The second question that will come to your mind will be where would all the money come from in order to buy these assets? Will you use your own pocket money or will you borrow from someone else? And third, how will you generate enough cash through your operations in order to create value? Now let's put all these three questions in a balance sheet. So we have a left-hand side, which is set for the assets. Since we have a list of three assets here, so we can categorize these assets into two different categories. The assets which serve you for more than a year, we call them as long-term assets. And assets which are consumed within a year, we call them as short-term assets. So I can categorize my assets area into two parts. The upper part is usually set or maintained for short-term assets, and the lower part is set for the long-term assets. So I can write inventory in my short-term category, and I can write machinery and land on the long-term side. The second question calls for the right-hand side of the balance sheet, which we call as the sources of funds. Now, sources of funds can be of two types. Either you will be using your own equity or pocket money, or you will be borrowing someone else's money. And the borrowed money may also be categorized into two types, just like our assets. If the money is borrowed for less than a year, we call such liabilities or loan as short-term liabilities. If the money is borrowed for a long-term purpose, which is to be used for more than a year, we call such liabilities as long-term liabilities. Let's say we categorize our sources of funds also. The upper portion may be termed as short-term loans, and the lower portion may be divided into long-term funds and your own equity. Now, normally, the lower half of the balance sheet remains fixed for the most part. However, you may see frequent mismatches in the upper half of the balance sheet. And this is where the third question comes in, the creation of value. In order to create value, you must generate enough cash through your operations so that your short-term assets are always heavier than your short-term loans or liabilities, which is only possible if you manage your assets well and generate enough cash through them. So let's sum up our discussion. We call the first question as the investment question. Which deals with which assets to acquire, short-term as well as long-term. We call the second question as the financing question, which deals with the sources of funds. And the third question calls for the value creation, which comes through generating cash, which is the most liquid asset in a balance sheet. So we call the last question as the liquidity question. If you face these three questions in starting a business, This is corporate finance. So, broadly speaking, corporate finance is the study of finding ways to answer these three questions: which assets to acquire or to invest in, what will be the sources of funds, and how will you generate value through liquidity. So, next time you're thinking to start up a business, give these three questions a thought. That's it for this session. If this lecture helped you, please like my video and subscribe to my channel Simply Finance. Till next time, thank you very much. Allah Hafiz. Goodbye.